Okay, we are live. Sergeants, will you begin your recordings?
PC recording started.
Cloud is up. Okay, good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council meeting on small business. At this time, will all panelists please turn on your videos? To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices on silent or on vibrate mode. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we may begin.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Julie Menon, Chair of the Committee on Small Business, and I want to welcome you today to our Oversight and Legislative Hearing. Our oversight hearing today will focus on the problem of retail vacancies in the city, and we'll also be hearing a legislative package that aims to drastically improve the landscape for small businesses looking to start a small business and already established small businesses in the city. As a former small business owner myself, I've personally experienced how challenging it can be to own and operate a small business in our city. Engaging with the numerous city agencies that enforce complex regulations is a constant challenge for small business owners. I'm incredibly proud of my bill, Intro 116, which we are hearing today. My bill would require the city to create a one-stop shop NYC business portal. The portal would make all applications, permits, licenses, and related information needed to open and operate a small business in the city available in a single, easily accessible location on the SBS website and on a mobile app. The SBS commissioner also will be required to review annually the effectiveness and efficiency of the one-stop shop NYC business portal to make needed improvements and to report on these improvements to the mayor and to the city council. Small businesses in New York City have complained for decades that dealing with city government and navigating various agencies is needlessly complicated and burdensome. This bill would help make that issue a thing of the past with a straightforward, easy one-stop shop for city businesses. I'm so proud that this bill received a supermajority of co-sponsors with over 38 council members signing on, which really reflects how incredibly useful this could be for small businesses across every single council district. Our hearing today will also focus on the problem of retail vacancies in the city. To help us come to grips with this problem, we'll be discussing the results of the Department of Finance's storefront vacancy database, which DOF was required to produce due to the council's enactment of Local Law 157. This database is supposed to provide policymakers with useful insight into which city neighborhoods have high vacancy rates, as well as indications as to why vacancies occur both long-term and short-term. While commercial vacancies have historically been a problem in certain neighborhoods, the pandemic caused a drastic increase in small business closures. Over the course of the pandemic, over 26,000 businesses closed permanently in New York City, and around 90% of these businesses employed 10 or fewer employees. Although the pandemic has devastated commercial corridors across the city, some neighborhoods were especially hard hit, and the administration must focus their resources in these neighborhoods to aid the city's recovery. In 2020, the most recent data published, West Brighton and Brooklyn had a commercial vacancy rate of over 36%, and Stuytown and East Manhattan had a vacancy rate of about 25%. Some neighborhoods were spared this downturn. For example, Williamsburg, Brooklyn had a vacancy rate of under 2%. While we need more research to identify what has caused a crisis in certain neighborhoods, the pandemic has almost certainly exacerbated the problem. I know this administration believes in data-driven solutions, and I look forward to hearing how the administration is using every tool it has to best protect the hardest hit commercial corridors. To help the city address these important economic issues in a data-driven way, the administration must take steps to improve the data they are providing to the council and to the public. For example, DOF should streamline the multiple data sets for each year into one data set to allow for easy integration and to help the public analyze the data. DOF should also take responsibility for ensuring that they are asking property owners the right questions to produce clear and usable data. We are hearing Introduction 383 today by Councilmember Brewer, which would require the public data set to include whether a commercial premise is vacant, leased, or owner occupied, and if vacant, the expiration date of the most recent lease. This data will further enhance DOF's data set and provide a more up-to-date picture of the state of commercial vacancies in the city. Lastly, we are hearing Intro 197 today by Councilmember Rivera. The bill would require SBS to establish a legacy business registry of businesses that have been operating for at least 20 years and contribute to the history and identity of city neighborhoods. SBS would be required to establish a legacy business preservation fund to award grants to legacy businesses and property owners who offer a 10-year lease to a legacy business in cases in which a legacy business faces a significant risk of displacement. The legislative package we're hearing today will improve the material conditions for small business owners and entrepreneurs of the city. I look forward to hearing the administration's positions on these bills, and I look forward to hearing from advocates about the importance of this legislation and any ideas they have to amend it further to help our small businesses all across the city. With that said, I want to thank the committee staff team, Senior Counsel Stephanie Jones, and Senior Policy Analyst Noah Meixler, the Council's data team, data scientists Brooke Fry, Julia Fredenberg, and Melissa Nunez, and my Chief of Staff, Jonathan Schutt, and Legislative Director Brandon Jordan for their hard work. And I'll now turn it over to Council Alex Polinoff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Menon. As the Chair mentioned, I'm Alex Polinoff, Legislative Counsel at the New York City Council, and I will be moderating this hearing. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called upon to testify, at which point you will be unmuted by the host. During the hearing, I will be calling on panelists to testify, so please listen for your name to be called, as I will be periodically announcing who the next panelist will be. At this hearing, we will first be inviting testimony from the Department of Finance, followed by the testimony from the Department of Small Business Services, and then from members of the public. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question of the administration or of a specific panelist, please use the Zoom raise hand function, and I will call on you in order. We will be limiting council member questions to 5 minutes, which includes the time it takes to answer those questions. For all panelists, when called upon to testify, please state your name and the organization you represent, if any. Before we move to the administration panelists, I would like to turn to Councilmember Carlina Rivera for an opening statement regarding her legislation. Councilmember Rivera, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you all, to the staff. Thank you so much for coordinating this hearing. To everyone who is here to testify, thank you. I want to thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the members of this committee for the opportunity to speak today in support of my bill to create a legacy business registry here in New York City. So whether it's the bodega that you go to for coffee every morning, or the pizza place that you swing by when you don't feel like cooking, or the stationery store where you buy birthday cards, small businesses are absolutely integral to our lives and communities. Small businesses create jobs, they forge intergenerational bonds, and they make our neighborhoods what they are. Intro 197, my bill with Chair Julie Menon, will support the legacy businesses who have shaped who we are so our city can continue to be the greatest city in the world. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to all of the advocates and business owners who are here today to testify. And I look forward to continuing to work together to support our small businesses and enhance our communities. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Rivera. I'll now turn it back to the chair to recognize council members who are in attendance.
Thank you so much, Alex. I want to recognize my colleagues who are here today, Majority Whip Brooks Powers, and Councilmember Rivera, who you heard from, Councilmember Ung, and Councilmember Palladino, and we'll recognize additional council members as they join. So Alex, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We will now call upon representatives of the administration to testify. We will begin hearing testimony from Preston Nyblack, Commissioner at the Department of Finance, and we will also hear testimony from Calvin Brown, Assistant Commissioner for Neighborhood Development at the Department of Small Business Services. We will be joined for questions by Michael Hyman, the First Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Finance, and Tian Weinberg, the Chief of Staff to the Commissioner at the Department of Small Business Services. At this time, I will administer the affirmation. Administration panelists, please raise your right hands and I will call on each of you individually to respond. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions today? Commissioner Nyblack?
I do.
Assistant Commissioner Brown? Assistant Commissioner Brown is your marker. Great, thank you. First Deputy Commissioner Hyman?
I do.
And Chief of Staff Weinberg?
I do.
Thank you. Commissioner Nyblack, you may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Menon and members of the committee and the City Council who are here today. My name is Preston Niblack. I'm Commissioner of the Department of Finance. I'm here today to testify on the DOF storefront vacancy registry and on Intro 383 introduced by Councilmember Brewer. As you know, Local Law 157 of 2019 requires property owners to submit to DOF registration statements regarding their ground floor and second floor commercial retail premises. The information gathered from their filings is used to create the city's storefront vacancy registry. The storefront vacancy registry provides statistical and longitudinal data on storefront spaces over the required reporting periods. This information can help the city track short and long-term trends, such as vacancy corridors. Additionally, the registry enables the Department of Finance to provide the vacancy status of storefront properties as of specific dates. Regarding Intro 383 by Councilmember Brewer, we certainly understand the desire for more timely reporting on storefront vacancies. We support the intent of this bill, and we look forward to continuing conversations with the council on ways to change the reporting on storefront vacancies to make it more useful to policymakers in all agencies. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and I'll take any questions or turn it over to Assistant Commissioner Brown, whichever you guys want to do.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we'll turn it over to the Assistant Commissioner and then we'll have some time for questions after that. So Assistant Commissioner Brown, you may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Menon and members of the Committee on Small Business. My name is Calvin Brown, and I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Neighborhood Development for the Department of New York City Small Business Services. I am joined by Tian Weinberg, the Chief of Staff to Commissioner Kim, and also the Commissioner of the Department of Finance. We're pleased here to testify on the city's commitment to combating commercial vacancies. At SBS, through our work of our 4 divisions, we aim to unlock economic potential and create economic security for all New Yorkers by connecting them to good jobs, creating stronger businesses, and building vibrant neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. Our Division of Economic and Finance Opportunity, or DFO, is focused on helping the city's MWBEs connect to more government contract opportunities. Our Division of Business Services, DBS, helps businesses of every size, sector start, operate, and grow in New York City, including by helping businesses navigate city government. Our Neighborhood Development Division, which I'm the Assistant Commissioner of, equips community-based partners, including our business improvement districts, or BIDs, with the resources needed to help our commercial corridors thrive. And our Workforce Development Division works to increase access to quality training jobs for all New Yorkers. Storefront businesses serve many functions across the city. They are a part of our local communities, contribute to the citywide economy, and provide goods and services to neighborhoods, create jobs, and bring character and vibrancy to our city's streetscapes. In the best of times, these businesses face many challenges, from constantly changing and highly competitive markets, and the challenges have been magnified by the pandemic, and they still persist as we navigate the recovery. The circumstances that lead to commercial vacancies are complex and vary from borough to borough, neighborhood to neighborhood, and from block to block. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. At SBS, we work with business owners to shore up their resiliency to withstand the incredible challenges of operating a successful business. We also work with the business improvement districts across the city to support local business owners and create more resilient commercial corridors. SBS Commercial Lease Assistant Program supports businesses with the most fundamental contract for a storefront business, their lease. SBS provides free legal services to help businesses understand and negotiate new commercial leases, amend, renew, or terminate an existing lease, negotiate on behalf of commercial tenant with their landlord, and provide advice and referral services when litigation cannot be avoided. Since its inception, the program has served more than 1,500 unique businesses across the city and provided over 3,200 direct services. It's just one of the ways that SBS helps and supports small businesses and help them stay in business. The Adam administration has made substantial investments to reform and strengthen the regulatory and economic environment to support small businesses and make them stronger and more resilient. The administration made a significant step to cut red tape for small businesses with Executive Order 2, also known as Small Business Forward. As a result of the interagency working group, the city is reforming 118 penalties and eliminating 30 violations altogether. We expect these reforms to save New York City's small businesses an estimate of $8.9 million every year. And to help businesses become compliant before an inspection even happens, SBS regulatory experts, our compliant advisors, offer free on-site consultations to small business owners to help them comply with city regulatory requirements and to avoid common violations even before inspections happen. In partnerships with local financial institutions, the city will launch the 75 million Small Business Opportunity Fund to help entrepreneurs gain much needed access to capital. The fund will offer loans to both early stage and long-standing businesses, including many vulnerable BIPOC and immigrant entrepreneurs who did not receive federal financing assistance and those from communities that have been historically underserved. A strong business improvement district acts as a local network of support for commercial corridors. BIDS provide sanitation services, local marketing, public safety officers, and streetscape beautification services. Bolstering these organizations in communities that have been historically underserved and were hard hit during the pandemic is a priority for this administration. As provided in the executive budget for fiscal year 2023, SBS will provide direct subsidies to the smallest bids, prioritizing those with budgets around $500,000 or less to strengthen the business supports in these commercial corridors. With these funds, SBS will introduce a suite of back office professional services as well as startup tools to expand the capacity of small and new bids. For neighborhoods that do not have bid support networks, we work with community partners to identify the needs of local commercial districts and plan targeted solutions through our Commercial District Needs Assessments, or the CDNA. The CDNAs identify strengths, challenges, and opportunities within commercial corridors to better inform subsequent investments. And we follow this with targeted multi-year grants through our Neighborhood 360 program to tackle those challenges that have been identified. Some market trends and forces go beyond neighborhood level, particularly the move to online shopping. SBS offers free classes in digital marketing, web creation, and creating online marketplaces for individual businesses. We also offer mentorship programs through our Black entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship programs, which link entrepreneurs with mentors in their industry. New Yorkers also understand the value of our diverse local businesses and the importance of supporting those that have historical barriers to succeed. For these shoppers, SBS offers a consumer-facing web shop called Shop Your City, where New Yorkers can easily search and patronize businesses categorized by underrepresented demographics, including Black-owned, woman-owned, veteran-owned, and LGBTQ-owned businesses. To ensure as many entrepreneurs have equal access to these services, we're boosting our SBS mobile outreach team, bringing our services deep into the neighborhoods across the city. We're also investing in additional resources for translated materials in more languages and to make our services accessible as possible. And we're working closely with community-based organizations that support immigrant entrepreneurs to align our services with community needs. These are just some of the many services that we provide businesses to help them launch, grow, and thrive. Ultimately, the best defense against a vacant storefront is successful, resilient businesses, and our programs help businesses of all types to meet that goal. Now I would like to turn to the proposed legislation. Intro 19, a key component of the, like Intro 116, sorry, a key component of the Mayor's Blueprint Economic Recovery is a portal with a goal of allowing every business in New York City to execute and track all the interactions with the city in real time. Through the portal, we will provide small businesses with seamless and sequenced access, guiding the users across multiple agencies. The portal will also enable businesses to track their transactions with the city, including filing, permits, and inspections, to allow greater accessibility and transparency. We greatly appreciate the council's support for this effort, and we will work with you to ensure that this comes to fruition. And for Intro 197, we agree. Legacy-owned businesses add character, and they are the most important pieces of our neighborhoods. We support sharing these New York institutions with consumers to support them, and we will work with the council to reach this goal. Thank you for the time on the topic that reflects the core values of what we do here at SBS. As always, we value your partnership and we support to make and we value your partnership and support to make sure that the city small businesses come out of the pandemic stronger than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Brown. I'll now turn it over to questions from Chair Menon. Panelists from the administration, just please stay unmuted if you can during this question and answer period. Chair Menon, you may begin when ready.
Great, thank you so much. And I also want to recognize my colleague, Councilmember Velasquez, has joined. So thank you very much for the testimony today. In terms of the Intro 116, my bill on the one-stop shop portal, so I appreciate your comments on it. So I take that to mean that the administration is in support of this bill.
Chief of Staff Weinberg can answer that question.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And as Assistant Commissioner Brown said, SBS is dedicated to help small businesses launch, operate, and grow. And we work hand in hand with them to build resiliency so that they can withstand economic challenges. As the Assistant Commissioner said, the best defense to commercial vacancy are strong and resilient businesses. And that's exactly why a key component of the Mayor's Blueprint to Economic Recovery is to invest in a New York City business portal with the goal of allowing every business in New York City to execute and track all interactions with the city in real time, creating a one-stop shop experience with city government. All of this is to allow businesses to better manage the time working with the city so that they can double down on their core business. And we greatly appreciate the council's support for this effort and share your goals. And we look forward to working with you as a great advocate for small businesses and a great partner to SBS to ensure that the portal comes to fruition.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I take that to be a resounding yes. So thank you. We appreciate that. In the interim, based on SBS's expertise, do you have any other ideas of ways to expedite the process for small businesses going through application and permitting processes? Because obviously, I understand it'll take a little time to get this portal up. Any ways that we can relieve any kind of regulatory burdens on the license and permitting process in the interim?
Thank you, Chair Menon. You know, that's exactly why this administration prioritized Executive Order 2, Small Business Forward, to reform penalties and regulations impacting small businesses. As a part of that effort, we worked hand in hand with our sister agencies to really look and take a hard look at the regulations impacting small businesses. And we're proud that we will be reforming 118 regulations impacting small businesses, including eliminating 30 altogether. As part of the portal, we will continue that process. We want to be very thoughtful and precise with this process, and we really prioritize an interagency collaboration as part of that to help break down the silos work on the back end and make sure that when small businesses use the portal, it is a true one-stop shop, and they can reinvest their time in focusing on their business.
So part of the bill requires the SBS commissioner to annually review the effectiveness of the portal and really to seek input on ways to improve it. So I just want to make sure then that the administration is committed to that portion of it, to basically engage with small businesses and advocates to hear from them on needed improvements on the portal once it launches.
Absolutely. And in fact, we plan to engage with small business owners throughout the process of building and testing and launching the portal. We want to hear from them firsthand, the challenges that they've been facing, as we did with EO2. Having small business owners at the table is our best approach to actually making sure that this portal is effective in ensuring the one-stop shop experience.
Okay, I just want to move now to retail vacancies, because West Brighton and Brooklyn, as I mentioned, and Stuytown, Peter Cooper Village, both have vacancy rates in excess of 25%. What is the administration doing about that? Are you partnering with local bids, other neighborhood groups? What's the administration's plan to try to address this?
Well, on SBS, and we are partnering with our local partners, whether they are bids or even local commercial community development organizations, to make sure that we can assess what is happening along these commercial corridors. Currently in our, tool wheelhouse, we have CDNA process. So organizations that receive our grant, they do what we call business landscape, where they assess the vacancy rate along their commercial corridor and the storefront conditions, and document those things. And through our partnerships, we look at different strategies for activating those storefronts. We always go back, the best defense is making sure that businesses stay in there, but outside of that, just making sure that we're looking more broadly on different strategies that we can employ to make sure that we can activate those spaces. One of the things that we have done in the past is working with a local group called Shashama to do storefront startups, just matching them entrepreneurs with free rental spaces, just to make sure that those spaces are activated. So we continue to explore the different strategies that we can employ, and continue to work with our local partners, whether they be bids or local development community organizations, to think of ways to keep those spaces activated.
Okay, now there are a number of proposals to improve the Department of Finance's vacant storefront database, because I've now spent a lot of time in this database. It definitely needs improvements. So for example, adding a column in the data sets for the date and specific year of the data collected would be a simple fix. Can the administration commit to making that simple change?
We are so committed that we've actually already made that change. The database now includes a year, and the database actually includes both years of data that we have collected so far combined with the year field indicator. So that bit is done.
Okay, no, that's excellent news. Okay, I have one more question, then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues for their questions, and I'll come back on a second round. So currently around 97% of property owners of vacant premises did not identify a business activity in their registration statements. So does the administration support requiring property owners of vacant premises to identify the primary business activity for the last business use? Because that would obviously help us to glean insights into business activities most frequently linked to these vacancies.
So I neglected to introduce earlier First Deputy Commissioner Michael Lyman, who now I will introduce and turn the question over to.
Yeah, as we do actually ask businesses to identify the primary use in a space. Obviously, if it's vacant, that primary use has elapsed, but we'll look and try to bolster any reporting to get to the last use if a place is currently vacant.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'm now going to go to my colleagues. I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Thank you, Chair Menon. We will now hear from Majority Whip Brooks Powers. And just a reminder to other members who are present, if you'd like to ask a question and you've not yet done so, please use the Zoom raise hand function. And council members, you will have a total of 5 minutes to ask your questions and receive an answer from the panelists. The Sergeant at Arms will keep the timer and let you know when your time is up. Majority Whip Brooks Powers, you may begin when the Sergeant's announcing time.
Starting time.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Chair Menon and the committee staff for facilitating, and for SBS and DOF for being here to testify today. I appreciate this committee's attention to these matters. The pandemic has wreaked havoc on our communities, small businesses, and many are still shuttered and struggling to recover. In downtown Far Rockaway, I know that my business owners have been beset by additional challenges like reduced foot traffic and power outages as a result of construction in the area. It is important that we continue to find ways to simplify and streamline the experience of small business owners, minimizing red tape and helping them get back to serving our communities. I have a few questions regarding the bills being heard today. First, what kind of feedback have our small businesses given around the need for a one-stop service? Have the agencies identified key features that businesses would like to see in such a platform? Some of our city's communities, as a result of the digital divide, I'm interested in knowing what work is being done to reach these businesses and ensure that they're not left behind in terms of resource accessibility. And with regards to the Legacy Business Preservation Fund, how would the agencies ensure an equitable distribution of grant recipients? How would the commissioner determine whether a property is at risk of displacement? And those are my questions. Thank you.
I think Commissioner, okay, there she go, sorry.
Thank you. Apologies. Thank you, Councilmember Majority Whip Brooks Powers, for your questions. In terms of the feedback that we are getting from small businesses, we are actively in the process of soliciting that feedback, and we can definitely keep your office updated as for what we hear. But first and foremost, the user experience and improving the user experience is a priority for us. We want to make sure that this portal is a true one-stop shop so that businesses don't have to navigate to other agency websites in order to get their questions answered. And as for the digital divide, nothing replaces true on-the-ground door-to-door outreach. And that is a core component of any program that we do here at SBS. And it certainly will be for the portal itself. We look forward to working with community-based organizations to make sure that we get this portal in the hands of small business owners and work with them to answer any questions that they have. And as for the last question, I'll turn it back.
Thank you. And who are you turning back to?
Councilmember, could you please repeat your last question?
The last question that I asked, it was with regards to the Legacy Business Preservation Fund. How would the agencies ensure an equitable distribution of grant recipients? How would the commissioner determine whether a property is at risk of displacement?
Well, I mean, we currently.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't know if you could hear me.
No, I heard the question. Thank you for the question. Listen, at SBS, we share the concerns that the council has regarding these legacy businesses, and we want to make sure that we can do everything that we can to support them. We currently in our toolbox working with local organizations, especially in the Rockaways, through the CDNA process, just understanding the the population of those businesses and understanding their needs. So through the CDNA, we understand what those challenges are for businesses along those commercial corridors. So we use that information and develop strategies to sort of combat those challenges. So I think the information that we have for neighborhoods through our CDNA process, or continuing to work with our local partners, whether they be bids or other community-based organizations, I think we can, understand the universe of the needs and the challenges that are affecting those businesses, especially our legacy businesses.
Thank you for that. And, my office
I'm expired.
available to be able to provide support as well, because I have a number of merchant corridors that I think could benefit from some of the opportunities that would come out of these pieces of legislation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Majority
Thank
Whip
you.
Brooks Powers. Now we will turn to Councilmember Ong. Councilmember Ong, you may begin when the sergeants announce the time.
Starting time.
Good morning, and good morning, Chairman, and for hosting this hearing. I just have a quick question. I represent a district where English is not mostly small businesses' first language, and I'm hearing about the one-stop shop, that there'll be outreach to immigrant small businesses, which is great. But what steps is the agency taking to ensure that once outreach is made, which I have seen from small business, that there has been outreach in different languages, but what steps are the agencies taking to make sure after outreach is done, that the services that will be provided in the different languages?
Thank you, Councilmember Ung, for that question. We really appreciate it. And as you know, Commissioner Kim is deeply committed to ensuring that SBS builds deeper relationships with immigrant small business owners and those who speak languages other than English. As for the portal, as required by law, the portal will be accessible in at least 10 languages, and we will leverage our mobile outreach unit to get into historically underserved communities and to do that outreach that you mentioned with immigrant small business owners. I think the answer to your question is that the portal will be accessible in at least 10 languages, and we'll continue to engage, our community-based organizations that are really, the key stakeholders and key partners in ensuring that small business owners are able to use the services that we provide. We fully depend and work with trusted messengers because we believe that that's the best way to reach small businesses and help them through the process. And throughout the whole process, we will be delivering the information in a culturally informed and linguistically appropriate way.
Thank you. I just have a quick follow-up. I think it's great to work with the local CBOs. In terms of these, the websites that's being translated, is it something that's a Google Translate, or is it something that you're working with professional translators to make sure that's being translated correctly?
Thank you. That's a really important question. If you don't mind, I will talk with our team who is focused on the portal and get back to your office with a detailed answer.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Ong. We will now turn it back to Chair Menon for additional questions.
Thank you so much. I really want to build upon what Councilmember Ung mentioned. First of all, yes, if you could please get back to her office as well as our committee in terms of her question about Google Translate, because we've seen so many problems with Google Translate where it really makes it very difficult for small business owners when the translation is not up to par. I also want to suggest, and I appreciate that you're doing this in 10 different languages with the portal. I will say, when I served as Commissioner of Consumer and Worker Protection and we implemented the paid sick leave law, we did it in 24 languages. So I really want to urge SBS to think broader about that. With over 200 languages spoken in the city, 10 is on the lower end. And so if you can please consider adding more languages, we will obviously then be able to reach more small businesses. So that's my first, it's more of a comment than a question. I did have some questions about SBS Quick Start services, because how many small business owners have been served by SBS Quick Start?
Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. I do not have that number on hand as we were prepared to answer questions about the portal, but we are happy to follow up.
That would be helpful. I'd love to get information on how many businesses have been helped by that, and then also for businesses with limited English proficiency (LEP), if we could get some sense of the data on what SBS is doing to reach out to those communities, because I'm still concerned that many small businesses are not knowing about the services that SBS provides. And I certainly want to make sure with the portal that we are able to reach everyone. So I think that's incredibly important as well. So that was my last question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Menon. And again, if there's any council members who have any additional questions for the administration, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. Seeing none, we will now move to the public portion of today's hearing. I'd like to remind everyone that unlike in our typical council hearings, we will be calling on individuals one by one to testify, and we will be limiting each panelist speaking time to 3 minutes. Council members who have questions for a particular panelist should use the Zoom raise hand function, and we will call on you after the panelist has completed their testimony. For panelists, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and then the Sergeant at Arms will set the 3-minute timer and give you the go-ahead to begin. So please wait for the Sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. First today, we will hear from Max Bookman, followed by Erin Piskopink, and then Kathleen Riley. Max Bookman, you may begin when the Sergeant's announced the time.
Starting time.
Thank you. My name is Max Bookman. I'm a partner at the law firm Pazetsky and Bookman. For 35 years, our firm has been representing small businesses before various city agencies, including your former agency, Chairman. And we're also legislative counsel to the New York City Hospitality Alliance, and I'm pleased to speak on behalf of the Alliance today. Chairman, and you're also my council member. Thank you for I love your background. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for your leadership on this issue. And I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Rivera, who is an ally of our industry, and we've worked with on many important items. The Alliance supports all 3 bills, and we've detailed that in our written testimony. Chairman, and you asked for some ideas on Intro 116. The Alliance has 2 ideas. One is, let's not let one-stop shopping slide into two-stop shopping. It's important to clarify with the administration and the bill text that agencies must, number one, not only make application materials available, but actually accept submission of those application materials through the online portal. It's one thing to make materials available, but they need to accept those materials as well. And similarly, accept all application materials. Applications can be complicated. There's a lot of supplemental materials, there's plans that need to be reviewed, etc. It's not going to help small businesses to the maximum extent if through the portal, the agencies essentially accept some sort of like preliminary package of materials only for then applicants to get a series of emails from various agencies saying, okay, now that you've submitted your preliminary package, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you have to submit directly to us, not through the portal. So that's important. Idea number 2 is let's have one-stop brick and mortar shop too. And this goes to the digital divide that Majority Whip Brooks Powers mentioned. I could tell you from representing small businesses myself that the digital divide is real. So many of them are recent immigrants who, even if you put the portal in their own language, many of them just lack the comfort and skill utilizing online systems. It's not just about outreach. I mean, they need a physical location to go to where they can bring all their papers, speak to someone who's been cross-trained in the various agency requirements, who could accept papers for filing. One in each borough we think would be a good idea, either in this bill or in future legislation. And that would help broaden or bridge the digital divide. I thought I had 2 minutes, so 3 minutes. I'm actually, I got 30 more seconds to give us. So I guess with that, I'll just say thank you again, Councilmember Menon, for your leadership on this. And the Alliance is glad to be working with you on this and so many other important issues. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
First of all, let me just thank you for the testimony from the Alliance. And let me just say, in terms of the first point you made, that absolutely the bill would require SBS to receive the application in its totality. It's not just a a website that then you'd get information, but you'd actually be able to submit it. And ultimately, the goal, of course, should also be that all violations and fines are also consolidated into that one-stop portal as well. So thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bookman. We will now hear from Aaron Piscopink, followed by Kathleen Riley and Michelle Shang. Aaron Piscopink, you may begin when the sergeants call the time.
Starting time.
Good morning, Chair Menon and members of the City Council. My name is Erin Piscopink, and I'm testifying on behalf of the New York City Bid Association. I'm also the Executive Director of the Grand Street Bid in Brooklyn. The Bid Association represents the 78 individual bids throughout the city that serve as stewards of our diverse commercial corridors and neighborhood public spaces. Our mission has always been to support the nearly 100,000 local businesses we serve to keep our neighborhoods clean and safe and to bring prosperity to our communities. Never has our work been more important and vital and essential than it has been during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our members have worked tirelessly throughout the crisis, educating and delivering resources to our small businesses and workers. We're pleased to present this testimony today on our city's commercial vacancy crisis. Commercial vacancies were a concern long before the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course has exacerbated many of the challenges our commercial businesses face. Bids have done everything possible to help businesses survive and thrive, from sharing information on relief programs to managing open streets and leading advocacy on open storefronts. However, more must be done, and we're glad that Chair Menon and the Council are focused on this issue. We strongly believe that regulatory burdens disproportionately impact small businesses, and the city's endless maze of paperwork and mandates must be addressed. We therefore support Intro 116, Chair Menon's proposal to create a one-stop shop business portal that would centralize all of these requirements. While we expect this will be a challenging task for the administration to execute, we're glad that Mayor Adams has also proposed such a solution, and we're hopeful that this dream can be realized. We also support Intro 197 from Councilmember Rivera to establish a legacy business registry and preservation fund. We've generally opposed heavy-handed interventions such as rent control and vacancy taxes, but this proposal is a much better method to help the legacy storefront businesses, which are so critical to our city's economy and identity, without hurting property owners. We do have concerns about Intro 383, which would alter the timeline of and add additional requirements to supplemental registration statements for commercial premises. While we share the desire for better data, we're concerned that this is yet another reporting burden on property owners that could be used as a tool for vacancy tax or other owners' interventions. We believe there are far better ways to get this kind of data, including through organizations such as LiveXYZ, which maintains a clearinghouse for business information, including vacancy status. Lastly, we want to thank Mayor Adams, SBS, Chair Menon, and the entire City Council for their support of bids during these difficult times. We're hopeful that the adopted budget will include operational support for small bids to provide enhanced services to our districts, which will surely result in the survival of commercial businesses, amongst other benefits. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Ms. Piscopink. Next, we will hear from Kathleen Riley, followed by Jessica Walker, and then Michelle Shang. Ms. Riley, you may begin when the sergeants call time.
Starting time.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Riley. I'm the New York City Government Affairs Manager for the New York State Restaurant Association. We know how much the restaurant industry means to the city and its culture and its economy, and we do believe that the recovery of New York City itself will depend on supporting the recovery of the struggling restaurant industry. With those goals in mind, we're so grateful to Chair Menon, Council Members Rivera and Brewer for sponsoring legislation aimed at supporting and reviving storefronts in New York City and giving us the opportunity to discuss the problem of vacant storefronts today. Intros 116, 197, and 383 each represent distinct steps the city can take to create a more supportive, organized, and navigable experience for all storefront businesses. Intro 116 would spur the creation of a one-stop shop New York City business portal, which would create a unified entry point for businesses seeking city services, obtaining permits, and otherwise interacting with various agencies, and replace the current system where businesses log in or interact separately with most agencies. Introducing a one-stop shop is important for all business operators because it would cut down on the friction of interacting with city government, and it would be especially important for operators who are either less tech savvy or face other sorts of barriers to interacting with the city online, although we do agree that it's important to have in-person opportunities as well. Reducing the different kinds of places that you need to know and be aware of to interact with the city online is definitely an important improvement, saving people both time and energy. Intro 197 would create a registry of legacy businesses and dedicate preservation funding towards keeping them in place. We're very supportive of this proposal because it would help New York's oldest businesses get the recognition that they deserve and protect them from displacement. The process put forward in Intro 197 to nominate and approve businesses makes sense. We would also suggest conducting thorough outreach across the city to make sure all businesses are aware of the distinction and have the opportunity to get connected with their council member, borough president, or other elected officials for nomination. Intro 383 would tighten reporting obligations for landlords and improve the city's access to information about storefronts that become vacant. We are supportive of gathering this data because the pervasive issue of vacant storefronts can only be tackled insofar as the city understands the true scope of the problem. On that note, I would like to address our overall concern with the ongoing problem of vacant storefronts. For commercial corridors where vacancies are prevalent, located across all 5 boroughs, the surviving businesses, neighbors, and the general public have to suffer the consequences. Vacant storefronts reduce the appeal of their blocks, and while active commercial corridors contribute to a sense of public safety, concentrated vacancies detract from that. We support creating a framework of incentives to connect new and existing businesses to fill the vacant storefronts and allow these businesses to contribute to New York City's economy, which they're so eager to do. Thank you for holding this hearing. Thank you for the attention being paid to these important issues, and we look forward to collaborating with City Council and the Adams administration in the future on these. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Next, we will hear from Michelle Shang, followed by Randy Piers, and then Ryan Monell. Ms. Shang, you may begin when the sergeant's call time.
Starting time.
Thank you, Committee Chair Menon and the Committee on Small Business for this opportunity to testify. I'm Michelle Shang, the Small Business Technical Assistance Coordinator at the Asian American Federation, where we represent the collective voice of more than 70 member nonprofits serving 1.5 million Asian New Yorkers. Every day, our small business team works to support Asian business owners across New York City. The majority of our clients are low English proficiency immigrant business owners in neighborhoods like Flushing and Sunset Park. Our work gives us a firsthand understanding of the challenges that these business owners face, and we're excited for proposals like Introductions 116 and 197, as they provide much needed support to new business owners as well as beloved legacy businesses, but we hope that such programs are equally accessible to the city's immigrant LEP business owners. To this end, we'd like to suggest some amendments to Intro 116 based on common challenges we see in our community. First, language access and technical assistance programming. Language barriers and the digital divide remain significant issues with government programs, as CM Ong, Majority Whip Brooks Powers, and Chair Menon have all raised. We urge the city to ensure that the one-stop shop NYC business portal includes quality translations into the most spoken NYC non-English languages. Google Translate, which is used on city websites at the moment, does not provide sufficient translations, as CM Ong has pointed out. Additionally, it's crucial to provide both outreach and one-on-one support to ensure a hard-to-reach population can access these kinds of programs. In our work on SBS's commercial lease assistance program, for example, we've had to walk almost every client step by step through the online registration process. We anticipate similar divides with the one-stop shop portal website, and we therefore urge the council to set aside funding for a technical assistance program for the site in partnership with community-based organizations like ours. Second, compliance and violation information. Commercial violations remain one of the biggest challenges for the city's smallest businesses. The procedure for curing violations differs greatly from department to department. The DOB, for example, requires a certificate of corrections on top of correcting violating issues to consider a ticket resolved. In our work, we found that business owners often don't know these kinds of procedural details and therefore have open violations for years without even knowing it. Intro 116 already compels all the relevant agencies to coordinate permit and licensing information, and therefore it's an amazing opportunity for these agencies to also aggregate compliance information. We therefore recommend that the one-stop shop portal include department-specific compliance information to help businesses maintain good standing. Third, vendor information. We found in our work that business owners in immigrant communities often rely on personal relationships to find vendors who are frequently unlicensed. These vendors may do work improperly or without filing paperwork, therefore resulting in surprise fees or additional necessary work later down the line. Therefore, we recommend that the one-stop shop portal include a list of city licensed vendors, including plumbers, sign hangers, electricians, and fire technicians. The DOB already keeps lists of these currently licensed vendors, and the one-stop shop portal would simply need to make them available to new business owners. In summary, we recommend that the council make the following changes to Intro 116. 1, ensure quality translations into the top non-English languages. 2nd, fund a technical assistance and outreach program.
I'm fired.
Could I just finish really fast? 3rd, add compliance.
Yes, please finish, and then obviously we want you to submit these comments in writing, because I really appreciate that you've got specific recommendations, so thank you.
Thank you, absolutely, we will. Okay. Second, fund a technical assistance and outreach program to ensure access for hard to reach populations. Third, add compliance and violation information to the portal. And finally, fourth, add licensed vendor lists to the portal. Thank you to the committee for this opportunity to testify, and we hope we can continue working together to ensure small businesses flourish.
Thank you, Ms. Shang. Next, we will hear from Randy Piers, followed by Ryan Monell, and then Laura Sewell. Mr. Piers, you may begin when the sergeant's call time.
Starting time.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chairwoman Julie Menon, who's been a super champion for our small businesses. Randy Piers, President, CEO of Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. 62,000 small businesses, 84% have less than 10 employees. We are in support of Intro 0116, the one-stop portal. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's also the companion to Small Business Forward, which was announced a couple weeks ago by the administration to eliminate fines or to reduce, I wish eliminate, but to reduce fines and violations. It makes a lot of sense to have a one-stop portal. I'm not going to repeat some of the additional recommendations that many of my colleagues have mentioned, but I will say this to put things into context. 2020, we saw the rash of business closures. 2021, at least in Brooklyn, through the first half of this year, we've done more ribbon cuttings than I've ever done in my career. This is a good thing. It's a good sign. But we've got a long way to go to really make it easy for people to open small businesses in this city. So let me push you guys a little bit further. On Small Business Forward, for example, the fire department got a pass. There were 38 reforms that were looked at, only provisions, and only 4 were recommended. So we've got some work to do. The fire department is probably one of the biggest obstacles to opening a business in New York City than any other agency. Second, I'm going to read from an op-ed that I wrote over a year ago. As the Citizens Budget Commission points out, from 2010 to 2020, revenue from fines and violations increased at a rate of 2.6%. At almost 1.1 billion, but fees and permits increased even more, 3.7%. So annually, and by the way, the rate of inflation was only 1.6%. So what does that tell you? It means we've got more permits and more fees and more licenses that businesses are required to actually access in order to open their doors. So we need a real comprehensive approach here. The portal is a very good step in the right direction. I want to thank the committee and its chairwoman for getting us to this point. But we've got a lot more work to do, folks, if we truly, truly believe in small businesses and we truly, truly want to support almost 49% of our economy, right? Because 49% of the jobs come from the small business community. With that, I say thank you for your advocacy and your efforts, and I look forward to working with you on more of this to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piers. Next, we will hear from Ryan Monell, followed by Laura Sewell, and then Emily Goldstein. Mr. Monell, you may begin when the sergeants announce the time.
Starting time.
Well, thanks, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Ryan Monell, representing the Real Estate Board of New York. Look, over the last couple of years in particular, throughout the pandemic and now hopefully following the pandemic, as we start to wade out of it, no issues have been more important to our members than those of small businesses and supporting small business tenants across the 5 boroughs. We want to be at the forefront of finding solutions. We believe that the 3 bills being heard today bring up really important issues that hopefully we can find positive opportunities for more businesses to flourish in New York City. Regarding Intro 116, just as you've heard from many of our colleagues, Revenue also supports this legislation. Of course, eliminating red tape and bureaucracy by ensuring that small businesses and their constituents can easily and quickly navigate city government should be a priority for this council, which it seems to be. The council must ensure that there is proper funding, of course, though, and interagency coordination necessary to facilitate this task. And should also ensure the appropriate oversight, which I'm sure you will, to see that it is completed in a timely manner. In addition, as this process is facilitated, as we've heard from many of my colleagues, it provides yet another opportunity for the council to evaluate all applications, permits, licenses, inspections, and fees currently necessary to do business in the city, and to remove or revise those found to be burdensome, duplicative, punitive, or unnecessary. As Randy mentioned, one of the biggest issues that we've seen is with FDNY. So this hopefully would provide an opportunity to evaluate how interagency coordination could potentially expedite processes, particularly around inspections, which we found particularly recently to be a significant prohibitor for small businesses to open. With that said, Revenue stands ready to support and assist in these efforts for the benefit of all small businesses and tenants. Regarding Intro 197, Revenue also supports this legislation and believe that it provides a framework for ensuring that businesses that have historically contributed to a community are able to continue operations. Last year and the year prior during the pandemic, we actually worked with now Comptroller Lander and Councilmember Powers on a similar proposal that would actually provide, instead of a grant, an abatement to allow for what we believe could potentially be even more folks who represent small businesses to benefit outside of a grant program. And we'd love to work with you, Chairman, and in the council to potentially find opportunities to bring that conversation back into the forefront, which we believe would be another opportunity alongside this grant program, which provides a great jumping off point. And then finally, Intro 383, I think we understand the goal is to tighten reporting deadlines to make published data more current. I think we found, particularly surrounding the facilitation of Local Law 157 and also RPIE filings, real property income and expense filings, oftentimes are very
Time expired.
And just to finish very quickly, we think that making sure that what is being proposed in this bill is done in a way that is as least burdensome as possible would be very beneficial, and we think that the time frame as proposed might provide some challenges. So willing to work with you all on that going forward, with the understanding that we want to make sure we have as good of data as possible. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Manel. Next, we will hear from Laura Sewell, followed by Emily Goldstein, and then Jessica Walker. Laura Sewell, you may begin when the sergeants announce the time.
Starting time.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chairman, and it's very good to see you in this role, and appreciate that you're getting right down to business and moving things along. Regarding the portal, it's very reassuring to hear from SBS, with whom we've partnered over the years, that this is something that they see as doable. With the way paved there, I think that the idea of a one-stop shopping portal is, of course, a wonderful one. And it will be challenging to implement, get the word out to all the small businesses speaking all the different languages, some of whom are, as we've heard from other people, not digitally literate, but we're equally committed to work for the success of this and to get the word out. I would say we also represent residents, and in all of this talk, I would like to hear more commitment to residents as well as businesses, and especially where it comes to issues of public safety, the Department of Health and the fire department. I spent most of yesterday trying to trace down a mysterious electrical smell that was so strong it woke us all up at 6:30 in the morning. So these are very real concerns, the food temperature and the public safety around the fire department. So all for supporting the small businesses, but let's not forget us. We were pleased to serve on Councilmember Brewer's retail task force when she served as Manhattan Borough President, and the idea of using Department of Finance data that's already been collected to help offer our city a real reporting of our vacancies is something that we really didn't understand how we didn't already have it. So the pathway of using it, of doing and accomplishing it that way, is very important. We think having the landlord's report is important because we also are getting reports from the bids and other areas that work with small businesses. So it's good to compare it to what the landlords are actually reporting. And it's not so burdensome for the Department of Finance or for the landlords that we can't benefit from this. Regarding the legacy business registry, I think the registry is a great idea. I'm a little unclear on the criteria other than 20 years. And we are also concerned about this incentivizing landlords to raise rents so that they and the businesses can benefit for them. So that's really something that needs to be examined. We are still greatly in support of commercial rent stabilization, the real thing.
Expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sewell. Next, we'll hear from Emily Goldstein, followed by Jessica Walker, and then Juan Rivero. Ms. Goldstein, you may begin when the sergeant's call time.
Starting time.
Thank you to the Chair Menon and the members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Emily Goldstein, and I'm the Director of Organizing and Advocacy at the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development, or ANHD. We are one of the city's leading policy, advocacy, and capacity building organizations with a membership of over 80 neighborhood-based and citywide nonprofits that have affordable housing or equitable economic development as a key part of our mission. Many of our members work with local merchants associations and provide supports through various SBS programs to help small businesses in their communities. ANHD is also a member of United for Small Business NYC, which is a coalition of community organizations across New York City fighting to protect New York's small businesses and commercial tenants from the threat of displacement, with a particular focus on owner-operated, low-income, people of color-run businesses that serve low-income communities and communities of color. We all know that small businesses are the backbone of our city's neighborhoods. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, many small businesses were facing displacement pressure from rising rents. And of course, the pandemic shutdowns caused severe crises for countless small businesses throughout the city. In New York City, the soaring cost of commercial rents stayed on trend with pre-pandemic rents, and individual landlord negotiations are often not enough to help keep small businesses alive. New York City's small businesses need legislation that addresses rising rents and resulting commercial vacancies. And so we appreciate the council's focus, the committee's focus on the issue of commercial vacancies today. With regards to Intro 383, this builds on the passage of Local Law 157 in 2019, which established a publicly available storefront registry with median rents, lease terms, and vacancies of commercial spaces. This was a major victory for anti-displacement organizing. The data gives policymakers and advocates the necessary information to create meaningful protections for New York's commercial tenants and hold landlords accountable if they do not comply with the laws. We support Intro 383, which makes fixes to the timing of the registration requirements that will help ensure that the data in the registry is accurate and consistent. We commend Councilmember Brewer for her leadership on this issue over the years. On Intro 116, we are well aware that small business owners frequently have difficulty navigating the systems that they need to interact with. The creation of a one-stop shop could really help remove barriers to access and make those processes substantially easier for small business owners. We agree with some of the comments that have already surfaced around really focusing on ensuring that language access is baked into this portal, not just the bare minimum of the existing legal requirements, but increased numbers of languages and access not only on the portal itself, but within the services. The last sentence I'll say is that we also recommend the portal include information on commercial tenants' rights and information on how to access services such as the Commercial Lease Assistance Program, help from industrial business service providers, and other community organizations, in addition to services by city agencies. Again, thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll submit my full remarks in writing.
Okay, thank you very much. I also just want to recognize two of my colleagues who've joined, Councilmember Kaban and Councilmember Krishnan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Goldstein. Next, we will hear from Jessica Walker, followed by Juan Rivero, and then Olympia Kazi. Ms. Walker, you may begin when the sergeant's call time.
Starting time.
Hi, and good morning. My name is Jessica Walker. I'm the president of the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. I'm a little under the weather, so bear with me, but this topic is so important. Recently, we got a large federal grant to help work on issues of commercial vacancies in Manhattan. And some of the work we're going to do is going to look at the entire city. But I just want to make 3 points. And I think this funding, this important funding, is going to allow us to help further the 3 areas I'm going to speak about. One, we really do see that there's a dearth of data on commercial vacancies. I mean, there's a dearth of data about actually just what's going on with small businesses on the ground. Generally, we want to reverse that. We're actually going to be spending the summer on the ground, really going neighborhood to neighborhood to really try to understand what's happening. And we hope to report back to you in the fall. We absolutely support Councilmember Brewer's bill to improve the so-called vacancy registry. We think that this could really be helpful going forward, and we definitely support it. Second point is that we really do have to support the temporary solutions to fill vacancies that do exist. There are some great programs like Art on the Avenue, Shishama, some other organizations that are doing some very innovative things to fill vacancies, and they deserve more funding and more support. And then finally, and most importantly, we have to support the businesses and the entrepreneurs who can take and retain these spaces so we don't have vacancies in the first place. As has been noted earlier, we're seeing an increase in entrepreneurship, and we want to do everything we can to really help that thrive. So we absolutely support Councilmember Menon's one-stop shop bill. It is vital to creating a friendly environment for entrepreneurs. Obviously, we have to continue to reduce costs. We support a feathering or some sort of exemption from the commercial rent tax for businesses in Manhattan. We support the City Council adopting what we call economic impact statements that allow unbiased economists to look at legislation to make sure it's not going to have unintended consequences for small businesses. And then finally, we also support a program that we have been providing with the other chambers called the Small Business Recovery Network. We are seeking additional funding in this budget to keep the program going. It's allowed us to touch more than 30,000 businesses in many different languages in neighborhoods throughout the city, throughout the 5 boroughs. It's a terrific program that has been very helpful, and we would like to see that remain at its current levels. But thank you so much. We look forward to working with you. And like I said, we will report back with our findings soon.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. And next we will hear from Juan Rivero, followed by Olympia Kazi, and then Karina Kaufman Gutierrez. Mr. Rivero, you may begin when the sergeant's called on.
Starting time.
Thank you. I'm Juan Rivero, speaking on behalf of Village Preservation, a neighborhood preservation nonprofit in downtown Manhattan. One of our main areas of concern has been the preservation of longstanding businesses that have become institutions in their communities. We run a number of programs that invite people to nominate such businesses for special recognition by our organization. And sadly, a good percentage of those nominated have, after decades of operation, shut down before we even get to them. For this reason, we have been staunch supporters of the Small Business Job Survival Act and formula retail zoning restrictions aimed at protecting independent businesses. It is not surprising then that we look favorably upon Intro 197 as a complement to such measures. We wanted, however, to bring a few concerns to your attention. The first is the nomination process. Given that the importance of these businesses to their communities is at the heart of this initiative, it would make sense that nominations for inclusion in the registry begin with communities rather than with elected officials. This would help limit the politicization of the process and engage communities beyond their proposed current role as consultants after the fact. Second, there's the amount of the grant, which I want to put in perspective with an actual example. A 30-year-old business, 2-employee business in one of our neighborhoods recently lost its lease after a failed negotiation. It is shutting down at the end of this month. It used to pay $8,000 a month for 500 square feet. The proposed renewal imposed, along with other onerous conditions, a quote-unquote preferential increase of 25% or $10,000 per month. The two proposed grants would combined have covered about 10% of this rent increase. So that's $200 out of $2,000. Not nothing, but not necessarily a difference maker. Third, the proposal as formulated premises the landlord grant upon a risk of displacement determination. So this could, in theory, as Laura Sewell pointed out, incentivize a landlord to threaten displacement in order to qualify for the grant. By the same perverse logic, the grant to the tenant offers a landlord room to increase rent by the amount of the grant, thereby undermining the goal of the program. All that said, we feel that the retention of legacy businesses is a crucial issue. We support the spirit of Intro 197 and hope that the foregoing concerns are addressed and that this bill is complemented with long overdue major initiatives like the Small Business Job Survival Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Next, we will hear from Olympia Kazi, followed by Karina Kaufman-Gutierrez and Paula Siegel. Olympia Kazi, you may begin when the sergeant's call time.
Starting
Thank you.
time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. My name is Olympia Kazi, and I'm a founding member of the New York City Artists Coalition, who is a member of the United for Small Business NYC. I also served as the vice chair of the Nightlife Advisory Board for New York City. So, I want to echo a lot of the things that were said earlier today by Emily Goodstein, Juan Rivero, and Laura Sewell. And so cutting red tape, it will be important. At the Nightlife Advisory Board, in our report, we talked about this. It's very important that we have a one-stop place, but we also always talked about how that should not be to the detriment of public safety. And we also are aware, as the cities, from the recent survey of New York Speaks, that this is not the biggest concern of actual small businesses. In fact, the biggest concern in that survey was rents. And even SBS has testified repeatedly that the biggest concern of small businesses is rents. So I'm very happy we're talking about vacancy today, but we also need to discuss about what really, creates these vacancies. So before I move into the biggest bill that I want to talk about, that is the legacy business, I want to make one comment more about the digital divide that the majority whip mentioned, that is real with the businesses that we work. And I want to recommend that the city, with the help of the city council, continues to give grants for community needs assessments. They're the so-called CNAs, because that's the best way for you to get data for those that most need help. And so this also addresses language barriers and access, digital accessibility, digital divide and accessibility. So about the Gail Brewer bill, we love it. We were among the advocates that passed with Helen Rosenthal back in the time, the original, because we all know if we don't have data, we cannot resolve the problem. So this is great. Those two bills are great. The legacy business, my background is in architecture. So I am among the advocates for the legacy business bill. Oh, but this is so wrongly written. And so I understand why many people support it, because we all like this idea. But if you read the details, as people have already said, it actually works as an incentive to displace, small businesses. So I want to share with you the story of Joan Kwong. Joan Kwong is one of the people that is behind the family of Pearl River Mart. Pearl River Mart, everybody knows. If there is a legacy business in New York City, it could be Pearl River Mart. So she hosted Mayor Adams in January at her place for the launch of the small business initiatives, and Deputy Mayor Springer was there, Maria Torres Springer was there. And what actually ended up being Joanne's comments was an SOS. She talked about the fact that they have been in existence for 50 years. And guess how many times they were displaced? 5. Every 10 years they were displaced. So why? Because the leases are 10 years. And what happens after the 10 years? A rent hike. So in terms of specific improvements, beyond addressing everything else everybody else said, if we're going to invest in legacy business, it cannot be in a 10-year increment. It needs to be more. And my colleagues of USB NYC are going to tell you more details about why this is the wrong way to go about helping legacy businesses. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Kazi. Next, we will hear from Karina Kaufman-Gutierrez, followed by Paul Siegel, and then Guy Yedwab. Karina Kaufman-Gutierrez, you may begin when the sergeants announce the time.
Starting time.
Well, good morning. My name is Karina Kaufman-Gutierrez. I'm the Deputy Director of the Street Vendor Project at the Urban Justice Center. I would first like to thank the committee for the opportunity to testify today on Intro 116, championed by Chair Menon, in relation to creating a one-stop shop New York City small business portal. The Street Vendor Project is a membership-driven organization that champions the rights of street vendors as small businesses to earn a living and contribute to the culture and life of New York City. In the past year alone, we've connected nearly 3,000 street vendors across the 5 boroughs to resources and information about housing, food access, loan and grant opportunities, and held 450 consultations to support vendors with business development trainings, financial empowerment workshops to enhance personal and business stabilization and growth. We're also a member of United for Small Business NYC, a coalition of community organizations across New York City from whom you'll hear today. The Street Vendor Project believes that the one-stop shop portal will be an incredibly important resource for New York City small businesses, and really thank Chair Menon for championing this legislation. But we do have two asks in regards to the one-stop shop business portal. The first is to ensure that it is inclusive of street vendors, our city's smallest businesses. And the second, as echoed by other colleagues today, is that the portal includes quality translation services that allow the resources to be truly accessible to small business owners for whom English is their second language, potentially even their third language, right? And that there are also in-person trainings to guide folks through the portal for those who have limited digital literacy. Vendors are New York City's smallest businesses. There are nearly 20,000 small business owners and workers keeping our city streets and sidewalks vibrant, who contributed an estimated $293 million to the city's economy. Yet despite their critical role, street vendors must navigate an outdated and arbitrary system that actually prevents vendors from acquiring the appropriate licensing and permitting needed to operate. And they're forced actually to operate within a complicated patchwork of city laws and rules. Much of the information regarding vending rules and regulations is scattered across various city agency websites, is extremely inaccessible, often only written in English. For example, a section of educational resources for vendors on DCWP website actually just links to sections of administrative code. This is the opposite of accessible, especially for an industry that is 90% immigrants. And part of the Street Vendor Advisory Board report that was released a few weeks ago, one of the key consensus recommendations from all stakeholders was for SBS to develop and tailor street vendor specific programs that will assist vendors in accessing entrepreneurial opportunities. We do hope that this one-stop shop follows in line with this increased support for vendors as our city's smallest businesses, receiving resources and investment, not just enforcement. And it is also the Street Vendor Project's hope that the next time this committee holds a hearing, there is increased inclusivity to street vendors and that commercial rent stabilization will be on the agenda. The City Council can help brick and mortar businesses avoid displacement through speculation now by regulating commercial rents and passing Commercial Rent Stabilization Bill Intro 93 into law before the end of the year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman-Gutierrez. Next, we will hear from Paula Siegel, followed by Guy Yedwab. And as a reminder to any panelists who still wish to testify who have not yet done so, please use the Zoom raise hand function and we will add you to the list. Ms. Siegel, you may begin when the sergeant's call time.
Starting time.
Thank you very much to Chair Menon and the committee for holding this important hearing and for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Paula Siegel. I am Senior Staff Attorney in Take Root Justice's Equitable Neighborhoods Practice. Take Root is also a member of USB NYC, which has been aptly described by my colleagues over the last several speakers. Also, over the last 4 years, Take Root has been a part of the SBS Commercial Lease Assistance Program, through which we have provided direct representations to hundreds of small minority-owned businesses on commercial lease matters, including new leases and renewals. Our clients, repair shop owners, barbers, restaurateurs serving culturally appropriate food to their immigrant communities, and other small, fragile businesses are regularly hit with 50 to 100% rent increases at the end of their lease terms, foreclosing the possibility of renewal and effectively functioning as eviction. Their landlords fantasize that they'll make way for higher paying commercial tenants, but often instead, the result is years-long commercial vacancies in anticipation of the higher paying tenants that do not arrive. The City Council can help our clients and tenants like them now avoid displacement through speculation by regulating commercial rents. The strategies that the Council is focusing on at today's hearing do not reach this crucial aspect of curbing vacancy and protecting New York City businesses. I'll now turn my attention to the two of the bills that were before us today, Intros 383 and 197. Thank you so much to the Department of Finance for its support of the storefront registry and its iterative improvement through Intro 383. We also commend Councilmember Gail Brewer and her staff for their leadership and for listening to advocates about key changes that need to be made to the registry, which are before the council today. Others have eloquently summarized why changes are needed and why data is important earlier in today's hearing. I just want to say a really hearty thank you to both the department and the council for being allies and collaborators on developing data that we need. On the other hand, Intro 197. While the motivation behind the Legacy Business Registry and Preservation Fund is certainly both understandable and noble, considering the conditions my colleagues and I have been seeing in our neighborhoods, this framework will only help the tiniest sliver of the businesses that are actually impacted by rapacious landlord behavior. As an initial matter, the requirement that a business must have been in operation for 20 years will not be met by most of my clients who are serving New York's many changing communities. Worse, as Mr. Rivera and others have already pointed out, the proposed framework presents an incentive for rent gouging in its very structure. Landlords would be eligible for direct grants of up to $225,000 in public money per landlord if they can prove to the SBS commissioner that there is a significant risk of displacement of their tenant legacy business. Of course, the landlord hiking rent themselves is what causes that risk in the first place. Rent hikes are synonymous with displacement, and in the absence of regulation like commercial rent stabilization, entirely in the landlord's control. This aspect of the proposed preservation.
I'm expired.
May I finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
This aspect of the proposed preservation fund will act as an incentive for landlords to create the risk of displacement themselves. Other details of the framework are similarly disquieting. First, to qualify for public money as a reward for keeping a legacy business in place, the landlords only need to sign a 10-year lease. That is a typical commercial lease and not a concession. The framework is based on a premise of winners and losers. Instead of encouraging enterprise and innovation by entrepreneurs new and old, only those businesses that are nominated by an elected official and then selected by SBS would be able to access protections. This filtering process will leave out nearly all the businesses we've served over our years of direct representation. All of them have been deserving of protections that allow them to build a base in a local community and remain an anchor in that community. Nominations will be done by elected officials only without participation of the public. That has been covered by other speakers. We're also concerned that this will be a program that is entirely in the purview of SBS. Like other programs where SBS decides criteria for eligibility, this is likely to leave out all the businesses in New York City that are organized as not-for-profit organizations. That's most of our cultural institutions. And these businesses are the ones that do not currently qualify for any SBS program. Finally, the criteria themselves, significant contribution to the history, identity, or character of the community, and an intent to maintain traditions, suggest a kind of Disneyfication of New York City through a set of accepted tradition instead of an encouragement to innovate and grow. Thank you so much for the extra time and for accepting feedback today. It's Take Root's hope that in the next time this committee will hold a hearing, commercial rent stabilization, Intro 93 will be on the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. We'll now turn to Councilmember Caban for questions.
Yes, thank you. And my question is for Ms. Siegel. Thank you for your testimony. And in relation to what you were saying about Intro 197, you touched on this like super briefly, but I'm hoping you can elaborate on this some. Like, what is the usual cause of risk of displacement for your clients?
Sure. I'm going to get emotional. It is what you think, right? A client signs a lease and has 5 years, 10 years at a location, and around them things change, or people have the idea that something has changed. The market has grown, whatever that means. And at the end of that lease, that commercial tenant has no protections. We have no framework for keeping commercial tenants in place at the end of the lease. It is entirely up to the negotiation between them and their landlord. The landlord is the owner. The landlord is allowed to do whatever they want. And oftentimes what my clients see is rent increases that are double. And landlords' attorneys regularly tell me that this is completely fine because that is what the market dictates. Because if they went out right now and tried to rent a brand new vacant space in that neighborhood, the rent that they're asking of a client that's been there for operating their business with margins that make sense with the rent that they've been operating with, the rent that they could get for a different space would be that imaginary number that they're asking for. And there's no check on that. It's a completely frustrating negotiation. We have no leverage. The only leverage we have is actually the risk of vacancy. What I routinely tell my clients is the last thing your landlord wants is a vacant storefront. So let's see if we can hold out. So it is a choice between a vacant storefront or you. And often we lose because the fantasy of capitalism, the fantasy of this expanding, ballooning market is extremely compelling. And that results in eviction. I just told you the story of 75% of the clients I've served over the last 4 years. Other folks have, ceilings caving in and stuff. We can talk about that at a different hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. Next, we will hear from Guy Yedwab, followed by Catherine Merchek. Mr. Yedwab, you may begin when the sergeants call the time.
Starting time.
Thank you, Chair, and to the committee for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm with the League of Independent Theater, an all-volunteer advocacy organization for workers and owners of small 99-seat or less theaters across all 5 boroughs. We're also proud members of the United for Small Business NYC Coalition, along with our colleagues. Our members are small cultural businesses, and our small-sized theaters contribute $1.3 billion in economic output, 8,400 full-time jobs, and $512 million in wages. Our small cultural businesses are commercial renters. Grassroots theater and dance venues across the city, particularly in the outer boroughs, are typically rented from landlords. That's why we in the cultural community welcome the opportunity to discuss the crisis of vacant commercial storefronts. We've submitted written testimony about the 3 bills on offer today, but I want to speak about the cause of vacant commercial storefronts: aggressive increases in rent, far outpacing what even healthy businesses can afford. Today, a theater or dance studio or bodega often has no idea what their rent is going to be after the expiration of their lease, and at any time they can be presented with significantly higher rent that will close them for good. Meanwhile, these limitless rents also create a huge barrier for new businesses that want to move into vacant storefronts, as they can struggle to compete with large national chains or even the landlord's outsized hopes of the rents that the space could command. This on-the-ground experience was confirmed by New York City Planning, which in its vacancy study found that commercial spaces were being kept vacant in hopes of charging significantly higher rents. We today are competing with spaces with ghosts. That is why the League of Independent Theater believes that the problem of commercial vacancy isn't addressed until the cause of commercial vacancy is addressed: the rent. Luckily, this committee has legislation, Commercial Rent Stabilization, Intro 93, that tackles the root of this issue directly. It addresses it for all businesses, not just a chosen few fortunate to survive for 20 years. It addresses it for all forms of businesses, not just those incorporated as for-profit businesses under the definition of small business used by SBS for programs like the Commercial Lease Assistance Program. Commercial rent stabilization addresses this for all commercial spaces, regardless of where they are in the building, not just street storefronts. Commercial rent stabilization is the tool to tackle commercial vacancy both now and long into the future. We've submitted written testimony on the other 3 pieces of legislation, but we call upon this committee to prioritize moving forward now on commercial rent stabilization. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Yedwab. Finally, we will hear from Catherine Merchek. And just as a reminder, if there's anybody else who still wishes to testify, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. Ms. Merchek, we may begin when the sergeants call time.
Starting time.
Hi, good morning. My name is Catherine Mercek, pronounced she, her. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify online today. Thank you, Chair Menon and honorable council members. I am a worker owner at a yoga collective based in Chelsea. It's called Samam Kaya Yoga Back Care and Scoliosis Collective. We've proudly been in operation for about going on almost 8 years now, and still holding on, thankfully, to our physical space, even through the pandemic, and serve people with a wide variety of different back issues and physical issues. So please do check us out. And I'm also a member of the New York City network of worker cooperatives. Worker co-ops span a wide array of different industries across all 5 boroughs, and are an incredible source of income and empowerment for communities of color and immigrant workers across the city. And as a member of the New York City Worker Cooperatives, we're also a proud member of the United for Small Business NYC Coalition, which you've already heard all about from some of our colleagues today. And my testimony today is mainly just to address the well, I appreciate that there's a hearing on commercial vacancies, but considering that fact, I was a bit surprised that it wasn't including Intro 93 for commercial rent stabilization, which I do feel would be probably the most impactful tool for to address commercial vacancies. I really appreciate the spirit of the bills being presented. I commend Chair Menon and Councilmember Brewer's leadership for the much needed changes proposed in Intros 116 and 197. I'm absolutely in favor of protecting legacy businesses, although my concerns, the concerns already expressed by many of my colleagues around Intro 383 do resonate with me. I do fear that it would incentivize landlords to kind of take advantage of that grant money. I think that giving them a reward for a 10-year lease isn't actually that useful. 10-year leases are pretty standard. My co-op has a 10-year lease for our space, so it would really help, I think, more if that were increased. And also, I mean, just, you know, speaking personally, a bill like this wouldn't help a business like mine. We still have insecurity around our future because our lease will continue, our rent will continue to go up, and it's a small space.
Expired.
So I just want to finish by saying, I hope that the next time we have a hearing that we'll be able to hear Intro 93 for commercial rent stabilization, which will help a vast number of different kinds of businesses all across the city and offer true protection, including to legacy businesses. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mercek. We will now turn back to Chair Menon for closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I first of all want to thank all of my colleagues for their questions and for being here today. I want to thank the administration for testifying. And I want to thank all the small business owners and advocates who took the time to come out. As a former small business owner myself, I know what a heavy burden that is. You're trying to operate your small business, and to have to come to a hearing to testify, I can't tell you how much that I personally deeply appreciate that and know that that's a heavy lift. These were great comments on these various bills, so I really appreciate them. We're going to take these comments back and make sure that they are incorporated and reflected. I did want to clarify one thing. There was some testimony earlier asking about street vendors and whether they're included in my bill. Of course, they're included in my bill. Street vendors, of course, require permits either from DOHMH or DCWP. So absolutely, they're included in the bill. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. And thank you. And we will pass along to Councilmember Rivera some of the comments that were made on her legacy small business bill, as well as to Councilmember Brewer. So I'm now going to close the hearing, and thank you all so much for participating. Thank you.